Okay, let's dive right into this explainer and completely demystify the journey of studying in the US. Look, for so many of us, the mere thought of pursuing an education in the United States, it just feels like this overwhelming, complex maze, right? Full of red tape and massive financial stress. But today, we're going to break down how this seemingly daunting process can actually be your single most strategic career move. We're talking incredible global recognition and some seriously high returns on your investment. We're looking at the real story, the hard facts, and the precise steps you need to take to literally turn this ambition into a reality. To make sense of it all without getting totally overwhelmed, we'll be following a really clear 6-step roadmap. First, why choose the USA? Second, the application roadmap. Third, financing your education. Fourth, cracking the visa interview. Fifth, post-graduation and work visas. And finally, busting common myths.
All right, Section 1, why choose the USA? We are seeing a massive global mobility shift right now. Get this, over 331,000 international students chose the US in the 2023 to 2024 academic year alone. That officially overtakes China as the prime destination. But you gotta wonder, what exactly is driving hundreds of thousands of students to make this specific, life-changing choice?
Well, the core difference really comes down to the educational approach. In a lot of home countries, the systems are heavily theoretical. They're lecture-based. You know the drill. You sit, you listen, you memorize. The US system, it totally flips that script. It trades that rigid learning for highly flexible, practical, and cutting-edge industry experience that aligns directly with what the actual market demands. You aren't just reading about a new business model in some dusty textbook. You're actively doing the research, getting your hands dirty with the exact concepts you're learning. And honestly, the real draw here is the financial payoff. The return on investment is wild. A fresh master's graduate from a U.S. university can see an incredible starting ROI of around $60,000 to $65,000. Yeah, I know the initial costs might seriously pinch your pocket, but the practical, industry-aligned skills you pick up, they translate directly into a premium salary the absolute second you enter the workforce. You are effectively paying for an accelerated track right into high-earning global industries. Which brings us right into Section 2, the application roadmap. Now that we clearly see the value, let's look at the actionable steps required to actually secure your spot. Honestly, the tedious application phase really just boils down to 3 distinct steps: identifying your target universities, clearing your standardized tests like the IELTS or GRE, and drafting your professional documents. But listen, I need to warn you about something absolutely critical. Relying on AI tools like ChatGPT for your statement of purpose is a terrible, terrible idea. Universities use advanced detection software now, and AI-generated essays will be flagged as plagiarism. That is an instant rejection. Your documents absolutely must be professionally crafted and authentic to your unique profile. Okay, Section 3, financing your education. Let's be real for a second. Figuring out how to pay for all of this is usually the single biggest source of anxiety for students and their parents. It comes with a hefty price tag, and before you even step foot on a plane, you actually have to prove to the US government that you can afford it. And to prove you can afford it, you've got to show legitimate funds using very specific, verifiable methods. We're talking well-documented savings accounts, aged fixed deposits, or formal educational loans. Do not, and I can't stress this enough, do not fall into the trap of using shady private financiers just to park money in your account for a single day to get a bank letter. If cross-verification happens, and it happens a lot, you won't just be rejected, you run the massive risk of being permanently blacklisted from ever entering the country. So let's break down the exact cost. Tuition can vary wildly, anywhere from $20,000 to $70,000 depending on the university, while your living expenses will usually sit between $12,000 and $20,000 a year. But here is your secret weapon, the 20-hour per week on-campus work option. Securing a campus job can actually bring in around $1,500 a month. That drastically reduces your living expenses and gives you a really vital taste of financial independence while you're studying. Moving on to Section 4. Cracking the visa interview. With your applications in and the funds secured, we reach what is easily the most intimidating milestone. This is a tiny 2 to 3 minute window where your communication skills and your professional attire are absolutely paramount. You simply don't have time to beat around the bush. You need to be direct, professionally poised, and completely crystal clear about your intentions. And your confidence in that room stems from one single document, the DS-160. This is the incredibly detailed primary visa application form that'll run you a $185 fee. You must know your DS-160 inside and out because once you hit submit, it locks tight. Any contradicting information you give to the visa officer during your interview that doesn't perfectly match what's on this form,
instant refusal. Accuracy and attention to detail are literally non-negotiable here. Next up, you'll be carrying your I-20. This is issued by your university after they've verified your initial financial ability. But your I-20 isn't just some welcome letter. It's an unconditional offer that sets the exact financial benchmark you need to prove to the U.S. government during that interview. It explicitly lists your expected tuition and living costs for a full academic year. Now, the crucial mathematical rule you've got to remember for your interview is the 1.5 times multiplier. If your I-20 says your total costs are, say, $60,000, you must show liquid funds equal to 1.5 times that amount, so $90,000. And here's a pro tip for you. Even if you scored a massive scholarship, never tell the officer you're entirely dependent on it. If you do, they might view you as a financial liability, or worse, a potential immigrant risk. Always project total financial stability. Then there's the SEVIS fee of $350. This system legally tracks your movement and your status as a student. Do not ever ignore your SEVIS status. When you land in the U.S., you have exactly 30 days to report to your university's designated school official. If you fail to do this, your SEVIS record is terminated and you are facing immediate deportation. Seriously, the U.S. government does not play around with these protocols. All right, Section 5, post-graduation and work visas. This is the ultimate reward for all of that meticulous hard work we just talked about, transitioning from a student navigating campus life into a full-time professional building a legit career in the U.S.
This transition happens through something called OPT, or Optional Practical Training. Think of OPT as your golden ticket. It grants you temporary employment authorization so you can gain actual U.S. work experience right in your specific field of study. And this is exactly what allows you to start earning professional U.S. dollars and begin actively paying back those educational loans. Now, the timeline here reveals the massive strategic advantage of choosing a STEM degree: science, technology, engineering, and math. Standard graduates get a 1-year OPT, but STEM graduates, they get a 2-year extension. That gives you a full 36-month window to work, build up your corporate network, cover those initial tuition costs, and actually find an employer who's willing to offer you long-term sponsorship. And that long-term sponsorship, that comes in the form of the H-1B visa. Now, yes, the H-1B is a lottery-based system, which might sound super risky at first glance, but here's the major advantage. The U.S. actually sets aside a specific quota just for master's degree holders, known as the master's cap. Graduating directly from a U.S. university gives you a significantly higher statistical probability of selection compared to professionals trying to apply for that exact same visa from outside the country. Finally, Section 6, busting common myths. Let's rapid-fire bust some of the most persistent, paralyzing myths surrounding this entire journey. Because, let's face it, bad information stops way too many talented students from even trying in the first place. So this is probably the #1 anxiety for families from humble backgrounds. Is this massive global opportunity exclusively reserved for the super rich? I mean, what is the actual truth behind those giant price tags we looked at earlier? Well, the reality is that your capability actually matters far more than your cash. Modern financial institutions now offer fully 100% funded educational loans without requiring any collateral at all. And even better, they offer these generous grace periods where your loan payments only kick in 6 months after you graduate. Add in merit and need-based scholarships, and I promise you, this dream is vastly more accessible than most people think. Okay, here's our second massive myth. Do you absolutely have to get into Harvard, Yale, or a top 50 school to make all this worth it? So many students just assume that going to a tier 3 or a regional university is a total waste of time and won't lead to a high-paying job. But is that actually accurate? Not at all. The reality is that U.S. master's degrees, whether they're from a tier 1 Ivy League or a tier 3 regional public university, hold immense global weight. The U.S. job market is incredibly vast. Companies very often hire directly from local universities to fill their tech, healthcare, and finance roles. What really matters most is how you network, how you intern, and how you portray your skills. Any accredited U.S. degree is a seriously powerful asset. So, we've unpacked the exact steps, the real costs, and the long-term strategies. With this roadmap now clearly laid out, you've really got to ask yourself, what is the true cost of letting myths and temporary anxieties stop you? The blueprint to a globally recognized career is sitting right in front of you. Are you ready to take the meticulous steps required to cross those borders and finally turn your ambition into reality?